Before we get into the rest of today's video, I just want to say gracias to our wonderful sponsor Babbel. Babbel is a language learning app. I use it to get better at Spanish because I want to better communicate with some people in my neighborhood. I've learned a lot of useful phrases such as ¿Cómo te va?, Hasta pronto, amigo, and ¿Dónde está el baño? I choose Babbel because their lessons are created by native language experts that will teach you how to have real-world conversations. It's also great to learn a new language while you're on the go with the mini podcasts they have for you to listen to. Here you can see some of the games that you can play on Babbel. You really learn so much without it ever feeling like work. I can really say that Babbel's methods work, so whether it's a summer trip abroad or advancing your career, Babbel is the easiest way to learn a foreign language. Because Babbel is a supporter of the channel, they are giving Criminal Core viewers 30% off Babbel courses of 6 months, 12 months, and lifetime access. Just click on the first link you see in the description to start learning with Babbel today. On the morning of July 15, 1982, gravedigger George Keese discovered the body of a Caucasian woman in the rear of the Cedar Ridge Cemetery in Blairstown, New Jersey. The body was found lying on its back just over a steep bank that leads to a creek below. The victim's face had been beaten beyond recognition with an undetermined object. The medical examiner estimated that she was in her late teens or early 20s. Examination indicated that the girl had attempted to fight back or defended from her attacker, as trauma to her hands and arms was observed. The body was clad in a red short-sleeved shirt and a skirt. After seeing images of the girl's clothing in a newspaper, a witness named Anne-Marie Latimer told officials that she remembered seeing a girl wearing the same clothing as the victim, purchasing cigarettes on July 13, 1982. Just 2 days before her body was found. Latimer stated that she was shopping with her daughter at a supermarket across from the cemetery and observed she was able to describe the victim's clothing. The shirt and skirt themselves were traced to a manufacturer in the Midwestern United States. Some people also said that they bought similar clothes at a store in Long Island, New York. The victim was buried on January 22, 1983, after she had remained unidentified for over 5 months. Since no one knew her identity, she was named Princess Doe. Donated funds were used to pay for her coffin and headstone. The headstone was engraved with the text, "Princess Doe, missing from home, remembered by all." This is the first reconstruction made of Princess Doe, but did not lead to anything useful, unfortunately. For many years, Princess Doe was thought to be Diane Janice Dye. She was a missing teenager from San Jose, California, who vanished on July 30, 1979. This theory was supported by several law enforcement officials in the state of New Jersey. They went as far as to hold a press conference identifying Diane Dye as Princess Doe. In 2003, Princess Doe's DNA was compared with a sample of Diane's mother, Patricia. It was then conclusively determined that Princess Doe was not Diane Dye. In 1999, a woman named Donna Kinlaw was arrested in California for attempting to commit welfare fraud. When questioned by investigators, Donna decided to reveal that her husband, Arthur Kinlaw, is responsible for taking the lives of many women. Donna said that she was at the cemetery when Arthur took Princess Doe's life in July of 1982. Donna did not give any detailed information, and since Princess Doe had not been identified, it was difficult to prove that she was telling the truth and that Arthur was responsible. Arthur was, however, found guilty on a lot of other crimes. Investigators did get Donna to tell a forensic artist what the victim looked like. This is the sketch that was then made. One theory was submitted that Princess Doe may have been a runaway and could have been an individual using false names while employed at a hotel in Ocean City, Maryland. In 2012, the case was looked into again. A new composite sketch was made depicting her as a blonde, not brunette, like in the last sketch. Also in 2012, a sample of her hair and tooth were examined through an isotope analysis and indicated that the victim was most likely born in the United States. The sample of her hair indicated that she had lived at least 7 to 10 months in the Midwestern or Northeastern United States. The tooth sample indicated that she could possibly be from Arizona. It was also believed that the victim spent a long period of time in Long Island, New York. The case was featured on America's Most Wanted in 2012 in hopes to generate new information. The same year, the most recent reconstruction was broadcast on CNN. Additional composites of Princess Doe were made by Carl Koppelman that illustrated her clothing. In 2021, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children partnered with investigators and Estrella Forensics to help identify Princess Doe. On June 18, 2021, investigators received the news that Estrella Forensics agreed to extract DNA and construct a DNA profile. On February 10, 2022, Estrella Forensics relayed to investigators that the creation of a DNA data file was successful. The results were then sent to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children's consulting genealogist from Innovative Forensic Investigations. The managing officer was Jennifer Moore, who agreed to perform unlimited genealogy free of charge. On February 22, 2022, Innovative Forensics announced to investigators that they had a candidate for Princess Doe. Investigators then went to West Babylon, New York, where they met with Robert Olanick Jr. They believed he was the brother of Princess Doe. They also collected a DNA sample from Princess Doe's sister, which mitotyping technology used to build a mitochondrial DNA profile. The Union County Prosecutor's Office Forensic Laboratory assisted by creating an STR DNA profile through the victim's sister's DNA sample. Mitotyping technology then sent the DNA profile to the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification. On April 29, 2022, the center identified Princess Doe as Dawn Olanick. She was formally announced on July 15, 2022, the 40th anniversary of her discovery. Her brother Robert said that Dawn left their home at her mother's request and was never seen or heard from again. Arthur Kinlaw has been interviewed again, and he confessed. Kinlaw remains imprisoned at the Sullivan Correctional Facility in Fallsburg, New York. Investigators are now looking to piece together Dawn's movements in the time leading up to her demise. Dawn Rita Olanick was just 17 years old when her life was taken. "19-year-old Lindy Sue Biechler lived in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania in 1975. She had just recently got married. At about 8:45 p.m. on December 5, 1975, Lindy's aunt and uncle stopped by her apartment to exchange recipes. Instead, they found a horrific scene. There was blood on the front door, the entranceway wall, and on the carpet. They found Lindy's body on the living room floor. She had been stabbed 19 times with 2 different knives and assaulted. Investigators collected all forensic evidence they could at the crime scene. There were no signs of forced entry. Witnesses also didn't hear or see anything strange. In 1997, as DNA advanced, detectives with the Lancaster County District Attorney's Office submitted Lindy's underwear for DNA analysis. The lab found male DNA on it and could then create a DNA profile of the suspect. Recently, in 2019, investigators teamed up with C.C. Moore, who is the chief genetic genealogist at Parabon Nanolabs. Parabon created a composite sketch of the suspect based on the DNA evidence they had. In 2020, C.C. used DNA to build a family tree of the suspect. She found that he had deep roots in the local Lancaster community. She also found that the family tree of this unknown suspect contained many recent immigrant families from the tiny town of Gasparina, Italy. Finally, the search was narrowed down to 68-year-old David Sinopoli. Investigators learned that Sinopoli lived in the same apartment complex as Lindy. To ensure that it was his DNA that was left at the crime scene, authorities began surveilling Sinopoli, who didn't go out much in public. On February 11, 2022, investigators were able to obtain Sinopoli's DNA from a coffee cup he drank from and threw in the garbage at the airport. DNA found on Sinopoli's coffee cup was compared to DNA identified from the male DNA on Lindy's underwear. In June, investigators learned that the 2 spots of blood found on Lindy's pantyhose was consistent with the DNA profile obtained from her underwear. Detectives had long believed that the suspect had cut himself during the attack. Sinopoli is being held in Lancaster County Prison without bail. Investigators do not believe Sinopoli and Lindy knew each other. It was just a crime of opportunity. "30-year-old Patricia Stitchler lived in Sylvania, Ohio with her 3 daughters in 1985. She was divorced and worked for more than 7 years with the 21st Century Health Spas. Patricia's body was found by her 11-year-old daughter in the early morning hours of January 2, 1985. Someone had entered their home and slashed her throat while she slept. Patricia's 3 daughters were sleeping in their beds down the hall when the crime occurred. A window in the home had been left open, though it was unclear whether it was opened by Patricia or someone else. Investigators said that there were no signs of forced entry. Fortunately, there was a DNA sample from the crime scene that belonged to an unknown male. In 1985, authorities were unable to identify a suspect despite a thorough investigation. 2 new detectives were assigned to the case in 1998, but once again, it remained unsolved, even with the help of the Ohio Bureau of Investigation. Recently, the DNA profile became the focus of the investigation. Police enlisted the help of multiple agencies, including the Ohio BCI Forensic Lab and Lucas County Prosecutor's Office. They also established a new partnership with Advanced DNA, Forensic Genealogy. Using genetic genealogy, experts determined the DNA belonged to Michael Mellis, whom investigators later determined was less than 100 feet from Patricia's home on the night her life was taken. He was 17 years old at the time and in high school. He lived on the same street as Patricia. His residence was across the street and just 6 houses away. Police say Mellis was not acquainted with Patricia or her family, and would not have had any reason to be inside the victim's home. Mellis kicked the bucket before he could face prosecution. He joined the U.S. Army after graduating high school and lost his life in a single-vehicle car accident in 1989 while stationed in North Carolina. For Patricia's surviving daughters, who vowed to see their mother's case solved, questions remained. How did he get into their home? Did he see them? Why didn't he take their lives? Kristen Kelly, one of the daughters, said, "Help us understand the unknowns. Help her children in their suffering because it's not fair to any of us."